We're broke. The economic condition of this country is dire. So you cut $2 billion from overseas, put $1 billion against the deficit, put $1 billion into helping the people that we taught to be dependent on the federal government. So I think that's very reasonable. A better way to do this, rather than destroying the economy by raising taxes on the people who produce jobs, is quit these wars. Bring the troops home. Let them spend their money here. Let's have a real stimulus package. We're up to our ears in debt, trillions and trillions of dollars, and no end in sight for these wars. Then we could take care of our people. Matter of fact, I even proposed on many of these programs that I don't fully endorse because technically they're not permissible under the Constitution, but taking care of sick people, the elderly, and the children, I have nothing against that if you cut the spending. But to raise taxes on the rich and chase more capital overseas, that's one of our basic problems with the economy right now. $1.5 trillion of capital sits overseas because there's no incentive to come home here because of all the regulations that are bearing down on them. You have to change that or you're not going to get any jobs. That's what my argument is.
Congressman, I could not agree with you more.
If you cut $1 billion or $2 billion out of a program overseas that just gets us into trouble, put half of it toward the deficit, I will vote to put the other half into a domestic program that needs to be saved. So if they have this crisis and we could cut $1 billion out of our debt and spend $1 billion here or whatever, do it. We're spending, believe it or not, this blew my mind when I read this, $20 billion a year for air conditioning in Afghanistan and Iraq, in the tents over there, and all the air conditioning. Cut that $20 billion out, bring it home, take 10 off the debt, and put 10 into FEMA or whoever else needs it, child health care or whatever. But I'll tell you what, if we did that and took the air conditioning out of the green zone, our troops would come home, and that would make me happy. I proposed that very thing. Save a couple $1 billion from overseas, put half of it to the deficit, and put the other half toward taking care of the problems we have. In my priorities, you cut off all foreign welfare and foreign militarism and corporate welfare before you go after child health care. Right. And that sells. And you don't have to just address, health care for poor people rather than looking at this atrocious spending that we do overseas.
And you would bring home troops from Afghanistan, Libya, and Pakistan?
Yeah,
all of them?
Because I believe in a strong national defense, and I think that hurts our defense.
But you bring home all of them?
I'd bring them all home, sure, okay. Because we have no reason to be there. I mean, the soldiers we have in Korea, they went there when I was in high school. Yeah. How long are we going to stay there?
Congressman Paul, South Carolina has 7 major military bases and thousands of people employed in the defense industry. But you want to make major cuts in defense spending, several $100 billion in the coming years, that inevitably would cost South Carolina jobs. What do you say to people in this state who worry that your military plans would hurt the national security and cost South Carolina jobs?
I would say your question suggests you're very confused about my position. I want to cut money, overseas money. That's what I want to do. I want to cut military money. I don't want to cut defense money. I want to bring the troops home. I'd probably have more bases here at home. We were closing them down in the 1990s and building them overseas. That's how we got into trouble. So we would save a lot more money and have a stronger national defense, and that's what we should do. But to say that we would be weaker is absolutely wrong, because and another important thing you should consider is the fact that the military is behind me more than the others. I get twice as much money from the active military duties than all the other candidates put together. So they're saying that I'm on the right track. They're sick and tired of those wars. They're sick and tired of the nation building and the policing activity. But to say that we would have less money for defense, we actually have more money. And if I may, I'd like to go back to the international financial thing.
So, Congressman, just to be clear, your plan calls for freezing defense spending at 2006 levels, which is well below where we are today.
You still don't understand.
What's he missing, Congressman?
You don't understand there's a difference between military spending and defense spending. Just because you spend $1 billion on an embassy in Baghdad, bigger than the Vatican, you consider that defense spending. I consider that waste. So now, if A little while ago, we were talking about, funding the unemployed. Of course, that should be privatized, and I don't support it. But I don't support cutting that off like that. I'd cut some of this military spending, like Eisenhower advised us. Watch out for the military-industrial complex. Defend this country. We have to have a strong national defense, but we don't get strength by diluting ourselves in 900 bases, 130 countries. That is where the problem is. But you need to understand that there's a difference between just military spending and defense spending, just to spend money. We understand this domestically. If you spend more money domestically, we know it's wrong, but we're supposed to spend more money, and that's conservative. I've never quite understood this. We're supposed to be conservative, spend less money.